Today we're going to make some basil pesto, and so in the middle of the summer I like to aggressively cut back my basil plants so it stimulates a lot of new growth, and I'll have almost a new basil plant for later in the season. I'm also going to grab a little bit of this garlic here. Now whenever I harvest my basil, I like to put it immediately in water until I'm able to use it. I do not put it in the refrigerator, and I don't wash it until I'm ready to use it. Make sure you wash it because you never know what's creeping up underneath those leaves, okay? So here are the ingredients that you will need for your basil pesto. I like to use walnuts, and I went ahead and toasted those in my toaster oven, but you can certainly use pine nuts or experiment with some nuts that you like. This recipe is going to give you about 1 cup of pesto when it's done. I'm making a lot of small batches with my basil because I wanted to show you a couple of things, and I'll show you that at the end of the video. So now I'm going to grate the garlic into some olive oil. I'm grating a little bit more than I need for this recipe because I'm going to use it in another recipe. So you're seeing a little bit more than I'm actually going to use, but I like to grate it because it'll be nice and fine, and I'm only going to use about 1/2 clove. So because I'm making a lot of pesto and I'm going to keep it in my refrigerator, I'm not going to use it immediately after I make it. I'm going to blanch my leaves. And what this does is it helps protect the color and texture of the basil. And so all you do is just put it in some boiling water for about, 15 seconds, and then we'll put it in some ice water and let it stop the cooking process. Go ahead and drain the water off of your basil leaves, and I even go to the extent of putting it in my hand and wringing it out to make sure I remove the excess water. So I started out with about 2.5 cups of basil leaves, and I ended up with about 3/4 cup of basil leaves. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and just use my little chopper here because I'm just doing a couple of different small batches. So I want to go ahead and chop up the walnuts, and I don't want them sticking down in the corners there. We'll add a little bit of salt and a little bit of black pepper. I'll go ahead and add my basil leaves, and I'm going to put in some of the garlic. Now when I put the garlic in the oil, it kind of sinks to the bottom, so I'm just getting out a little bit of the garlic. I'll put in some more of the Parmesan cheese, a little bit more oil, and we'll give it a couple of pulses and get it mixed up pretty good. And I just want to make sure everything's getting mixed in well. I'll add a little bit more of the oil, and I'm using that other garlic for something else, as I mentioned earlier. And so I'm going to go ahead and give it a couple more pulses, a little more oil, a little more cheese, and I just kind of do that just to kind of check for the consistency as I'm mixing it. And if you want it a little looser, then you might want to go ahead and add more oil. I like mine with a little bit more of a thicker consistency, so when I go to use it, I can put it in something to thin it out later. And so I gave it a little taste, and I needed a little bit more salt. So I'm working on a video for you to show you some different ways you can use your pesto, and when I have it, I'll put a little card up here in the corner of the video for you, okay? Also, as I mentioned earlier, I wanted to show you a couple of different batches of pesto that I made. And I mentioned that blanching helps preserve the color and flavors and textures of a lot of our vegetables when we use them in our kitchen. On the left here is some of the pesto where I blanched the basil leaves, and on the right I just put a little lemon in there, but I did not blanch the basil leaves. And so if you're not planning on using your pesto right away, say you want to put it in your refrigerator, or maybe you've already done this before and you notice that it turns black after a couple of days, it's because you didn't blanch your leaves first. So here's a picture of what you can expect if you blanch your leaves. Of course, you can't see much of the blanched one because I've been using it, but you definitely can see how the color has darkened on the one where we did not blanch it. And I didn't mention too that lemon is a wonderful flavor to add to your pesto if you like that, but don't expect that it will preserve the color of your pesto, okay? So if you want to keep it in your fridge, if you're making a big batch, just take that a little extra step to blanch those leaves first, and I'm sure you'll be very happy with it. Also, I'd like to invite you to head on over to my channel where you can click on the G+ there. I'm not on Facebook or Instagram or all those other social platforms. So you can follow me over there on Gardening Tips, where I like to share other seasonal recipes and gardening tips, of course. Thanks so much for watching, and y'all have a beautiful day.